I first wanted to start off by saying that I probably come from a very different world than a lot of you, unless there's not men are from Mars and women are from Venus. This is a different world. I come from, my childhood was an orphanage world. I was born, I came to consciousness, if you like, I was about 4 years old. I was already in an orphanage in Shropshire. Before that time, I'd spent 3 months in Rosemundy, and then I spent about 6 months in Instow in North Devon. I don't know if you know, but the stately home of Lord Hector Christie's, the Hector Christie family. There was a home there for handicapped children. And, you know, sometimes I think that when they said any physical defects or maladies half-cast, that's why I ended up in that particular home for 6 months. So we know the times, the difficult times, both for race and for women. It's hugely oppressive times for any minorities really in society. But for us in care, I was brought up in a different world. I was brought up in a children's world. It was a children's world. For us, the staff were like the crocodiles who patrol the edges of our world. And we knew that if we crossed them, they'd snap back at us. But we were like, first of all, the first home I really remember was in Southport. That was 40 kids. And the second home was when I was 6 years old, moved to where there was 20 kids. But we were like a family of siblings. We weren't, I wouldn't say, in those days there was a relative level of stability in these children's homes. And there were benefits and threats. And I think often people can concentrate too much on some of the threats and the dangers and forget what the positives were. A friend of mine who brought up in a home of an engineer, a very relatively happy home. He was one lad and 4 sisters, and relatively well off. And he got halfway through the gully in the cupboard, and he said, "You had a better childhood than I did." And that's because I could describe the types of things we did together as children, how we learned from each other. We protected each other. We were gangs. Yes, we were marched to school. Yes, we had punishment and so forth, as many people did at the time. Yes, we faced physical abuse, as you put it today, but as many people did at the time. But when I woke up in the morning to when I went to sleep at night, I was in a children's world. And I was learning from those children and learning from my peers. In school, it's true, we learn from teachers, but fundamentally, from my experience, children learn from other children. And that is the value, and a terrible thing that was happening today of children being isolated and separated from each other, instead of focusing on the value they can give to each other, learning what humanity really is. There was abuse. There was abuse by staff. There was very little abuse by the kids, actually, because we had relative stability. There was abuse by female staff, and later on there would be serious, much more sharp, horrific, brutal abuse from the male superintendent. But within that, that corroded our world, but at the same time, within that we had a world which protected ourselves. And ultimately, as you'll read in the Gully in the Cupboard, when we children finally decided, I'm left by this time, but finally decided to stand up to the abuser, collectively, the children, a group of siblings, 5, 6 siblings from Liverpool, they refused to get off a bus until the police were called. They just sat there and refused to get off the bus. A bit like Selma Parks and co. in Rosa Parks, in Selma, the civil rights battle. They refused to get off that bus. And as a result, the abuser was thrown out of the home. The police were called, and Bernardo sacked that guy. Repeatedly, we tried to get that man moved. I'd written, and then I've been written to the regional office, and then I've been made to retract that letter. I was, 15 years old. The kids had asked me to write it. I didn't know exactly what I was writing, but I was writing it for them. I was sent away, other kids were sent away, and so forth. But finally, when groups of children stood together, and when children stand together, they can be very, very powerful. And that's one of the reasons why we in my belief, why we were so intimidated and threatened and called liars and so forth to other people, and our image created as a bad image because they wanted to keep us down, to keep us separated, to keep us intimidated. And that's just like the school system was, if you remember, in the 50s and 60s, how violent it was towards many children, to keep them intimidated, to keep them, because a group of kids, we know, they can outwit an adult very easily, and where a group of teenagers, they can outfight an adult as well. So there's a balance in society about how we look after children, how we value children. For me, that's very important. For me, children are our future, and they are beautiful in so many ways, and it's for us to protect and develop them. And so, but that's my feelings are there because I come from that world. I didn't have any particular adults who I thought, I didn't know my mother and father. I didn't know any relatives or something. I was just a kid in this orphan world, going through it, trying to make my way through it. I didn't trust adults, as you can understand why. We didn't have a particular relationship with adults. If they told me I wasn't this or I couldn't do that, then it didn't really worry me too much because I didn't really believe it. I never felt I had love. I didn't know really what it was, but then I'd never had it taken away from me. I never had that. So I had a relative level of freedom, if you like, and able to think out and try and work out things for myself. So I am thankful for those experiences in many ways, which are quite unique, quite unique and valuable as far as I'm concerned. And it's how we match them. You know, when I was 15, I found this out later, someone in the home wrote, one of the staff wrote, is a lad in their report, is a lad in need of a hard task because he delights in achieving the impossible. How do you like that? Have you ever achieved the impossible? Yeah, I can't remember when I did it, but it's a double-sided thing that about what they actually thought was possible. Could I go to university? Could I do this? Could I do that? Whatever they said, anyway, it seemed like I did something which they couldn't. So we learned from each other, and that was one of the benefits. One of the negatives as well, apart from abuse, was neglect of our education. Because we were seen as going nowhere. Because we were nobodies. And one of the problems with young people in care today, as ever, is they have no constituency. There's no member of parliament who can really stand up and say, these are my kids. Yeah? There's no one prepared to, if you say there's going to be a children's home in this area, normally the MP goes to the Minister of Education and says, move them on. We don't want them here. If you say you're going to get a new school in the area, say, yes, we want a new school. But when it comes to kids in care, there's no one who's particularly going to vote for them, partly because of the nature of our society. Our education was neglected. We weren't considered to go very far. In fact, this little story, when I was 10 years old, I think this is in Dolly in the Cupboard, we had to do the 11 plus in those days. You remember the 11 plus? And I was 10. And they gave us a form. The teacher gave a form in the class and they said, right, you're going to do the 11 plus. If you pass it, you've got to put King George V Grammar School, which was the grammar school in the town. If you don't pass it, put your favourite secondary modern school. So take this home for your parents and so forth. Well, of course, I didn't take it home. I just filled it in. And I filled it in. If I pass my 11 plus, I want to go to Birkdale Secondary Modern School. And if I don't pass my 11 plus, I want to go to Birkdale Secondary Modern School. Why didn't I want to go to the grammar school? Because they played rugby. I wanted to play football. I was football player. So this is what I did. But being very naive and rather stupid, which still may be, I just, when it came to the 11 plus, I know that. It's a tick, 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 blah, blah, blah. Yeah? And then a month later, the headmaster, Mr. Johns, got me into his study and he said, Phil Frampton, you've been a very naughty boy. I said, what do you mean? Very silly boy, he said. And then he said, what are you doing this for? You must change it now. You can't the table like that. And I changed it and I went out crying and I ended up going to university. I ended up going to the grammar school and on to university. Was he right or was he wrong? Was he right or was he wrong? Difficult one, isn't it? He was wrong because he was bullying me. Yeah? If he'd explained it, he probably would have changed me on. But there again, maybe not. So, and anyway, he was wrong because I could be now chairman of the Liverpool Football Club. So the point there was, if I was in control of my own destiny as far as education was concerned, because they didn't really care about our education. Of course, once I was at the past my 11 plus and at the grammar school, then I was like a star boy, and then it was a different type of thing. And things went different. At the grammar school, well, they didn't play football, but the first rugby game we played in, apparently, according to my friend, I ran in 6 tries. So then I liked rugby, so it wasn't too bad after all. And the